Hi there. I am ready to pot up some of my little seedlings that we've started over the past few weeks. Let me show you which ones. So here I have some broccoli. There's 3 different varieties, and I started these, I'll have to look and maybe put it on the video in a text box, about 3 or 4 weeks ago maybe. And you can see that some of the leaves are turning yellow at the bottom. And if you pop these out, which I'll show you in a minute, here we go, lots and lots of roots. They're starting to kind of go around. There's several plants here. So what I'm going to do is try to separate them as gently as possible. There may be a few that don't get potted up because I don't need this many broccoli plants. And I don't know for sure how many people might want to buy a little $1 seedling from me for broccoli. So plus I just have to keep in mind how much space I have. But what I'm going to do is break these apart and then put them each into their own cell, because then that should be plenty of room, because broccoli is going to get planted outside in the next, probably a couple, 3 weeks at the latest. So the process is the same no matter what you're going to be potting up. Basically, you get your potting mix, and you want to use a potting mix for when you're moving seedlings up into bigger trays. Seed starting mix is very, very fine and does not usually have much nutrition in it, if at all. And it's meant to be just an easy, fine-grained medium for the baby seed to for the seed to germinate, push through its first initial baby roots, push up its first initial growth, and get a start, hence seed starting mix. And then as the plants start to grow, they need more nutrition, and in this case they need more space. So that's when you want to switch to a potting mix. Typically, I have used for the last several years Espoma for everything. So my seed starting mix, I tend to use the Espoma brand. I like it. It is organic. So this is what the bag looks like. It's Espoma, E-S-P-O-M-A. I'm not affiliated with them. I just like their stuff. And I've usually used their potting mix as well. But I ran out, and they had this Pro Mix that I keep seeing people in the gardening groups I'm in talk about Pro Mix and how awesome it is. Tractor Supply had this value size compressed, where it's equal to 4 cubic feet instead of just a couple. That it would be the biggest bag you can get of the Espoma brand. It's very light. So this is one thing I'm noticing. It is mostly, it is a lot more like peat moss. That's its main ingredient. The Espoma has more forest products in it, so it's got a little bit slightly chunkier and a little more dirt-like to it. It's not dirt, but it feels a little more like that. This Pro Mix I'm noticing, and the lighting in here does not make this look as accurate, but the Pro Mix you can see has there's hardly any little twigs or anything in here. It's mostly peat moss and then a few other things. There is some nutritional stuff that they've added to it. It is an organic. I got the one that's for vegetables and herbs. So that's the primary thing that I'm potting up this year. But anyways, I've noticed is very, what I would call hydrophobic. When I first am getting it out of the bag, I have to really squish this to get it dampened up, because you don't want really dry, fluffy mix that you're putting your plants in, because then as it does absorb water, as you're watering your plants, because plants need water, it'll just collapse, and you won't have enough medium for the plant to be growing in. So you do want to get it moistened up. You don't want it like super soggy, drippy, but you do want there to be some moisture in here to start with. Kind of similar to with the seed starting mix, you want to be able to squeeze it and it kind of hold together. So when I first put it in here, it's like a powder, and I really have to squeeze to get this hydrated. So anyways, a couple things that I'm doing this year. I have always added a little bit of the Espoma Biotone starter into my potting mix. I don't know that I'll do that with this, because it says it has some nutrition in it. So I may just stick with using a little light liquid fertilizer as the plants are still inside growing. But I am adding something called Natural. It is a derivative somehow. Its active ingredient is Bacillus thuringiensis, which is a naturally occurring, I think, bacteria that acts like an insecticide for larvae, particularly fungus gnats, which if you've ever had any indoor plants, you know fungus gnats tend to come with the territory. They're very prolific. They breed in damp soils, and once they get going, it can be very difficult to eradicate, if impossible. So I'm doing all the things this year. I've got the sticky traps to try to catch the adults. I'm putting this into the soil. You're really supposed to mix it in water and then water it in, but I'm going to try adding a little bit into the potting mix as well, so that it's in there, and as the plant gets watered, my theory is that it will activate. I don't know if that's true or not. I saw another person do it on YouTube, so there's someone who is got a very great wealth of knowledge. It's called Garden Answer. Her name is Laura. She's wonderful. Anyways, so I'm going to try that this year. It seems to be so far helping a little bit to keep the population down more than it was last year. So I don't know if that's the only reason. The other thing I've added this year, I finally got a better fan that is blowing on the seed racks, the seedling racks, and that can also help because it discourages the fungus gnats from landing and staying put long enough to do their business and lay some eggs. So anyways, back to actually getting these things potted up. So basically all I'm going to do is take these guys out of their seedling tray, and then I'm going to, as gently as possible, kind of massage this. This will be easier when I have two hands, and try to wiggle these apart. I have a feeling I'm going to end up having to break some of the roots because I probably should have done this a week and a half ago. Either that or not put so many seeds in one cell. So I'm going to get these broken up as best as I can, and then we'll see which ones have the most roots, and then I will take a new little tray and fill it partly with potting mix. Kind of settle that in there. Make kind of a little hole in the middle. And then when I get one loose, oops. All right, so here's actually two. Let's see if I can get it apart. Sorry about the camera angle here. Okay, there, that came apart. So basically I just grabbed the two plants and gently pulled them apart. They both have some roots. So then what I would do is just slide this down into that hole. And then I'm going to add in enough dirt or enough mix to kind of tidy that up. Hang on a second, I'll show you what it looks like when I'm done. Okay, so basically you want to make a hole that's just deep enough for the roots so that the bottom of the plant is going to be at whatever is the top of your quote-unquote soil level. So you want the plant to just sit there like that, and then you're going to backfill in the hole and add a little soil to get that really stable so that it looks like this. It's tucked in, it's not flopping over, and it's got, we're not making a brick of potting mix, but we're making it so that there's no air pockets. All right, so that's basically what I'm going to do with these guys. And I think at most I'll keep 6 of each. I only need a couple of each, so hopefully somebody else will want to buy the others. And then with the violas, I'll do something similar, but I may have to do the violas in kind of like chunks, because as you can see, I just sprinkled a whole lot of viola seeds in here, and there's a ton of little baby plants. and they're still rather small, but they're very crowded. So one option would be to thin by snipping off plants at the soil level, and then those roots would just dissolve back in and feed the other plants. And then I could try separating them at the time of planting. And honestly, I may do that because these don't look too bad, although I might try to separate these because they're kind of apart from each other. This, I don't know. I'll pull one out and see what the roots look like. If there's just masses of roots like these broccoli, I may try to separate them into smaller chunks and then thin after they've kind of settled in and aren't mad at me. So I'll be back to show you that in a minute. Okay, so these are the violas. This is a King Henry variety. You can see the roots are there's quite a lot of roots. So what I'm going to do is violas tend to be very sturdy, hardy plants. So what I'm going to try to do to have as many plants to plant out in a couple weeks as possible is I'm just going to gently pull these apart like this. You can see I'm not just snapping it, so I'm trying to keep, the roots coming apart, leaving as much intact as possible. And then I'll take the new chunk and pull off little sections like that. So you can see still quite a lot of roots that has maybe 3 or 4 plants. Actually, there's maybe 5 or 6 here. So I may try to separate that again, or at this point I may, if I can get 6 or 5, I don't know, let's say if I can get 6 chunks out of each cell, that's a lot of plants. And then what I'll do is pot these up just like I did the broccolis, and once they've kind of settled in and I've left them alone for a few days, I'll come back in with my snips and I'll just snip off a few of the plants that are really close together and leave 2 or 3 per cell that are then at that point hopefully more spread out, and let them grow on a little bit more before I take them outside and plant them in some pots. So I think that's what we're going to do. And then the potting up is exactly the same. I'm going to just take this whole thing, I'm going to set it into a new tray in its own cell. So where there was all these plants in just one cell, I'm going to spread these out into a total of 6, and then later on we'll go in and thin. So I think that is what we're going to do for our potting up today, is basically separating and giving every plant its own little cell like that. You can see I also trimmed off the leaves that looked the most ick. Those were, when I looked at them more closely, those were basically the seed leaves, the cotyledons, that they initially come out of the seed with to first start growing. Those always usually tend to die off anyways, as it uses up the nutrition in that seed leaf. The plant then pushes out true leaves, which is what you see there, and doesn't need those anymore. It basically uses them up, and then they'll kind of like wither off and fall off. So I think we're going to end up with 3 6-packs of different varieties of broccoli, and probably maybe 2 6-packs of these violas, and that's going to give everything a little bit better space and nutrition to be able to grow bigger and healthier. So that's what our potting up is going to be today. Thanks for joining me here in Aunt Susan's garden.